So if you saw the last video about the Supra, you'll know we have a whole bunch of mods for this car. Again, huge shout out and thank you to Keys Motorsports for that. And in today's video, we're gonna start installing them. As a matter of fact, we're gonna do the most labor intensive one, which is this right over here. If you guys can't tell the obvious, this is the H&R lowering springs, of course, for the GR Supra. And now the reason why we're starting off with the lowering springs is because, well, as you guys can probably tell, just from the fact that I'm wearing a t-shirt, it is absolutely beautiful out right now. It's like mid-December, but it's like 50 degrees out. So since lowering springs tends to take the longest time, I figured I'd take advantage of the nice day and do the lowering springs today. We're not only gonna stop at the lowering springs, we're also gonna install some wheel spacers just to really set off the stance of the Supra and make this thing look like 10 times better. The Supra from factory really doesn't look all that bad. As a matter of fact, the wheel gap isn't horrible. So I think these H&R sports springs are going to make the car look so much better. Again, it really doesn't need much. Now, if you're wondering why I'm doing springs instead of coilovers, well, this car has adaptive dampers. So I don't want to go for coilovers and get rid of the adaptive dampers and then deal with like all the codes and all that type of stuff. But springs, on the other hand, is going to maintain all that. We're not gonna have to worry about coating or any of that type of stuff, but it's also gonna give the car a much better stance. Specifically, I think it's supposed to lower it like an inch from the front and like 0.75 of an inch in the rear.
A few moments later.
So what was a headache for me is an instant for you guys, but we got the front lowering spring and the new wheel spacer, which I'll tell you guys all sizing, all that later. But that side is now done. By the way, look who it is.
What's up, guys?
Since we knocked out this side off camera, we're gonna film the other side. This is not gonna be a DIY. We'll mention some things here and there, but don't take it as that's everything. We might just do some stuff. It is now officially like 1 o'clock. So I took maybe like 45 minutes for the other side, just, you know, trial and error. So we have until maybe like 4 o'clock until it gets dark. So JD, I'm going to hand you the camera. So to do this, I wanna take off this plastic thing because basically when we remove the strut and all that, or the spring, I'm not removing the top hat. I'm leaving the top hat in here. We still have to compress the spring. It'll all make sense, but firstly, we gotta remove this, which has some hose, which I don't. I'm a married man. That should be enough. We just gotta get to this clip, move this, that way we can access the top hat. All right, so update guys, JD right now, there you go. This bolt isn't gonna get fully undone. That's good. As long as we hit it with the impact and we loosen it up, that way we can actually hit it with the pass-through. As you guys saw, I moved all this stuff out of the way, moved that plastic over here. We jacked up the car, removed the wheel. We put another jack over here to release some tension. What we have to do behind here is remove the sway bar end link, which is a 16 mil, same thing. Oh, the nut is right over here on this side. And then there's two like sensor clips. So we have one right here, and then we have another one right behind here. This car does have adaptive dampers, so that's what all this is for. If you guys struggle to remove these, always use like a pick tool, which I have somewhere. Somewhere in this mess of things. Where do I go with my pick tool? What the heck? I can't find. We got springs and the things and the, oh, I'm making rhymes. I'm picking out my wedgie, don't judge me. Although this isn't a DIY, I'm gonna give you guys some tips that I've learned over time. Like I said, hit it with the impact first, because if you try to do it just with the pass-through, which is this right over here, and an Allen through, it's so tough. Like sometimes you'll actually break your Allen. So hit it with the impact, it'll start spinning, but that's just to loosen it. Then continue with this, but we're gonna hold off on that for a little bit. Other tip is same concept as this with the sway bar end link. Hit it with the impact first, it'll loosen it up. And then for clips, so JD, if you want to follow me over here, when you press down, sometimes it isn't enough. If you go through with your pick tool and you just lift that up, like so, I'm not sure how well you guys can see that, but that'll help out a lot, because sometimes people just try to muscle it too much and you end up breaking stuff. So if I can give you anything out of this video, it's those 2 or 3, I can't count, pieces of advice. And now we have to get the sway bar end link, which is right there, and that is a 16 mil. All right, bro, this is so nice. I'm like wearing a t-shirt and I feel good right now.
You look good, man. You look built.
Thank you, bro.
That home gym.
Hey, listen, man.
See? Instead of that garage you wanted.
Bro, legit. Listen, I'd rather have a nice body than a nice car. So we're gonna put the 16 and then we're gonna pass through it with the T30.
We say that and they probably go like, oh, suspension.
Easy. Anyways, as JD is undoing the rest of that, another tip for you guys is when you're removing your sway bar end link, jack up your whole assembly, because if you let this hang low, it's gonna basically get caught onto the sway bar end link. But once you jack it up, you guys can see all this tension is removed. Now we can easily slide this What was that? It sounded like a motorcycle.
It sounded like they were going the wrong way.
Let me just show you guys one more time. So you see how easily it comes in and out? So again, because we removed the tension, whereas if it was dropping down, the threads would get stuck onto the strut and then you can potentially damage it. So again, like I said before, this isn't a DIY, but maybe you guys will walk away with some tips. And I should also, you know, kind of disclaim this as well. I'm not a mechanic. I don't really officially know what I'm doing. These are just some things that I've learned from doing the suspension on my 435, the 330, the M3, helping Sticks out on his suspension, Justin out, and again, does not make me a professional, but I just learned a few things. So if nothing else from this video, hopefully you guys learn something. And you get to hang out with us, which I mean, come on, what beats that?
That's priceless.
Action. So if you guys look through here, or in here, you'll see I put on some spring compressors. So on the Supra, although we're not taking off the top hat, if I don't put on spring compressors, the spring is just gonna uncompress and it's not gonna be able to come out of the fender liner. So we put the spring compressors on, so this way when I lower the whole assembly, by the way, JD finished undoing the top hat. So this should, if JD did his job.
Ramon got it done.
Ramon Clint.
Ramon Clint got it done.
Yeah, this is the best we got, guys. If you have another professional jack, I would highly recommend it. This is the best I got.
This is a forearm workout right here.
Bro, this is literally the most brolic forearm workout ever. So this car, the top hats are kind of falling apart. So we're gonna replace that eventually. Not right now, because we don't have them right now. But we can at least take old spring out and deal with that later. And we can put on the new spring. I'm gonna slide that in just like that. And now when you do this, you wanna line it up with the rubber grooves. Probably can't see it on camera, but once you see it in person, it makes sense. So after this, I'm gonna look for some of these bearings for this top hat and try to put this thing back together. By the way, guys, something I forgot to mention is Keys did also send us out some wheel spacers. So we have 13 mil for the front. We actually already threw it on this side. And then we also have 15 mil for the rear. So before I forget and I put the wheel back on, we're gonna throw the spacer on. All right, guys, it's been a while since we picked up the camera. That rear driver's side took us like an hour and a half. Just because we're figuring things out. But the good thing is I'm gonna give you guys some like tips and things that helped us out when we're doing this side, which is all that's remaining. So it's looking pretty good though. Like, look at this. The front is settling in with the spacer. Again, huge shout out and thank you to Keys Motorsports for sending me the springs and the spacers. Look how good that looks. That looks amazing. Let's take a look at this side, which is now technically fully done. The rear is still, because we had it jacked up, you're not gonna be able to see it. Now I will say, obviously this is the installation. Once it all settles, because probably take like a week to settle, I'll follow up in the end of this video and show you guys the finished product so you can see what it looks like after everything settles and all that. So stay tuned, that's all gonna be in this video. So nothing interesting to see right now. We're just gonna jack up the car, remove the wheel, and I'll talk to you guys then. All right, so wheel is now off. Now for the rear, guys, what we have to do is remove one connection for the adaptive dampers right in here. Not sure if you guys can see that. Hold on, let me actually get the light. So hopefully you guys can see that. That is pretty easy to remove. Again, if it gives you issues, just use the pick tool, little technique. We're also gonna have to disconnect it from these brackets as well as some of these other lines as well, which I'll do later when I have two hands. Something else we have to do, because this is attached with two bolts. This one right over here, which attaches to the strut. This one, which attaches to, I think would be called the knuckle. Now we have to remove this one, but this one we're only going to loosen. We're not going to remove this one completely. And instead what we're gonna do is loosen up the strut from the top. The reason we're gonna do that is because, well, lining up these two bolts simultaneously is really tough. So if we just keep one in, it's gonna make our lives a lot easier. You ready, Squire?
Ready for war.
All right, so we're gonna start off with the bolt holding in the strut. Again, we're just gonna loosen this one. We're not gonna go crazy. All right, keep it loose. All right, nut came out. Now we gotta try to get this bolt out. You ready? How I look?
As good as a 30-year-old man can.
Hey, yo. All right, so for this, a good technique is to take a massive flathead, pry the bolt away, just like that. Boom bam. This side's already going a lot faster, huh?
Yeah.
We need the E12.
What's going on? It's over here. It's right here.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right, we need this, and then where did we put the...
It's probably in the box.
Now we're gonna undo, like I said, the strut, so that way we have wiggle room, but again, we're gonna wiggle room from the strut, not from the bolt, because we don't wanna have to deal with realigning that. This is just 3 external 12s. I said this isn't gonna be a DIY. I feel like it's pretty much like a DIY. But hey, do what you gotta do, huh? Action! So, what we gotta do now is release the tension off this lower control arm. That's a correct technical term. It should be able to pull down. So yeah, as you guys can see, we have the wiggle room because the strut's coming out. And now, what we should be able to do is remove the spring from underneath here. And boom bam. It's springtime. That was a joke.
I didn't laugh, guys.
New rear spring, similar to the front. Letters need to go up so you can read it. Another tip, try to put this perch in first. Perch Perkins. All right, so we gotta line it up with like the stops again, similar to the front. We now have everything lined up. It's gonna be hard for you guys to see here, but check this out. So we have the spring lined up at the top. We have the spring lined up at the bottom. What we have to do now is just get everything back in, which is, in my opinion, the toughest part of this entire process.
So guys, right now we're lining up the bolt, the E20 bolt, and this is kind of what it takes for you to do it. You kind of have to shimmy around the knuckle so you get the actual bushing to line up, and then spin it through. Just like that.
Very nice. That's literally the hardest part. Like, we are virtually done now. So the last thing, guys, is the 15 mil spacer for the rear. So this combined with the lowering springs, I think is gonna make this car look so sick. Again, huge shout out to Keys Motorsports for sending out the spacers and the springs. And remember, guys, we have a lot more for this car. Like, we have, this is just the beginning. We're only starting off with the lowering springs because today was so nice out, and this is the longest job to do. But we have so much more for this car. So stay tuned. It's only gonna get more interesting. So it's officially been a week since we installed the lowering springs as well as the wheel spacers on the GR Supra. So it should have settled at this point, and this should now be the final product. So with that said, what do you think? I think it looks pretty good. It's definitely not slammed. Like, there's still definitely wheel gap. There's the rear, here's the front. I will say the rear, in my opinion, is good, at least from a flush standpoint. Like, the 15 mil spacer definitely did the perfect job. The front though, I feel like we could go a little wider. Maybe 15s instead of the 13s. Here's just a quick look at it from the front. Again, guys, this is definitely lower than before. It's not super slammed, it's not super low. If you want to go super low, I think coilovers would have been the move. H&R Springs lowers it an inch in the front, 0.75 from the rear, which is good because the car is still usable and it's not gonna just overload the shocks and just wear them out way faster than it should. I think this is a nice, reasonable way to lower. And remember, guys, we are still gonna be installing a whole bunch of carbon and aero on the car, so all that's gonna make it look lower as well. As a matter of fact, I'm already scraping getting in and out of my driveways, and this is without a front lip. So I think this is the perfect amount. But again, for those of you who wanna go like super low, this probably isn't the route for you, just being honest. But for me, this is absolutely perfect. Again, with the exception of the front, I think we could do just a more aggressive wheel spacer. Again, huge shout out to Keys Motorsports for sending out the springs and the spacers. Huge thank you to JD for helping me install this. And yeah, with that said, I'm gonna move on to the next mods, which I'm gonna be doing today, which is gonna be in another video. So if you guys wanna see that, stay tuned, hit that subscribe button. But with that said, this video is pretty much done. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
If you don't listen that much, some of y'all don't listen at all. The same they be pushing yo.